Second. Motion is debatable. Amendment requires majority vote. All in favor of approving consent agenda items number 1 and 2, say yes.
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 Anyone opposed, say no. And we will approve the consent agenda items 1 and 2. Item 3, consideration and possible action by the City Council acting as the Zoning Board of Adjustment on a variance request to Section 98-122 of the City Code of Ordinances related to rear yard requirements for 128 Dinah Lane.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. McCorkadell.
Mayor and Council, you have the request information in your packet. This is for a residential swimming pool located in Town Creek Crossing. All residents, regardless of the city, are required to have a 10-foot rear yard setback. The applicant states that they do not have the room to locate a pool back there and are asking to encroach. I did include a photo of the property along with the surrounding ones. The slopes generally run from right to left on the property. This one is kind of at the bottom of the hill, so we would expect there to be some kind of drainage. Staff's recommendation would be to require a 5-foot setback that's open and allows the drainage to go through. The pool contractor should submit just a basic drainage plan to show us how they're going to not block water and shove it on the lot behind them or cause it to flow on the lot behind them.
I have a question about, so there, in the picture, there's a pipe poking up. Is that a utility?
That is a sewer, that looks like a sewer cleanout line. It's a little larger than a normal sewer cleanout. It's like a 6-inch. There's not an easement back there, so that would be running along the curb, parallel with the curb, not up the back of those lots. There's not an easement or anything that's on the back of the lots. All the easements in the subdivision are in the front.
The other thing I was trying to figure out, based off of I guess it's the survey that's attached, the total depth of the backyard is, what, 20 feet?
Right, from the back of their patio to the back of the fence is 20 feet.
And the whole depth of the entire lot was 70, what, up?
It was
120 feet. And what's our minimums?
120.
120. The request is for a 5-foot, not the 2-foot?
My recommendation would be to approve a 5-foot encroachment into the building line, but not approve it as submitted, which again they're showing, about 1.5 or 2 feet in between.
So they'd have to resubmit for 5 feet and we'd vote on it again?
Right. Well, if you approve 5 feet, they don't have to submit for the variance again. They've not gone through the permitting process, so they would just need to amend their plans accordingly before submitting their pool permit application.
Even with if they didn't put the pool in the 10-foot, is the drainage stays the same than if they move it the 5 feet in? Or was it because of they asked for the 2 feet that we're more concerned about the drainage?
My concern is that if you locate the pool as it's shown, there's no way for the water to get from the right to the left, so invariably it's going to head toward the back of the lot, which is going to push into the side yard of the houses.
Okay. And you don't think there's a smaller pool?
This is probably a fairly small one, if you scale it up to larger than what this is. But this is, again, it's only 20 feet between the patio and the back of the property. It's not a big one to begin with. It's fairly small.
Yep. It's like walk out the back door and fall in the pool. So.
I know. I'm like, really?
But as long as, it's not encroaching on utility or anything like that, so.
Right. Yes, sir. There are no easements in the backyard at all. There's a 15-foot side easement, which is not affected at all by the pool design.
Okay.
And now, who's going to check on this drainage?
This would be what they would need to submit as part of the pool permit, and again, at the final inspection for the pool to ensure that they, whatever solution that they can show, it's going to keep the water from flowing onto the back. As long as that's in place when they're done.
So like Carol said, who is going to check prior to it being installed?
Checking on the drainage before it's installed, I don't, we hadn't
Yeah, we
planned on
have to
checking
do that
on the
first.
drainage before it was, before it was installed. It's really the
Post
work, post-construction conditions that we're concerned about. This lot, while I couldn't see inside the backyard, it definitely flows, from the house toward the back, but at the same time, it's flowing from the right to the left. That's where the general, slope of the property is from right to left. So we just want to ensure that they're leaving room to allow for any water that was already coming onto their lot to still have a route to flow as it was before the pool. So
If we approve a 5-foot variance, what are the repercussions if they're 4 foot? What do we do?
they would either need to come back to you guys, or what we would tell them, and then they would appeal. We would say, you've not, built this in compliance with what your plan showed. You need to knock out a wall and move it. And that, candidly, it really doesn't happen often, but
So they have the houses on the one side of them, but not a house behind them yet.
not yet. There will be a house behind them. It'll be their side yard, and the driveway is really kind of what lines up to the back because it's oriented, differently. And there's nobody to the downhill or to the left side of them. That's where the street is.
I'm definitely not comfortable with the 2. I'm questioning even the 5 because of the drainage.
Certainly, if there is a motion, then that motion would need to have the contingency in its entirety read. Definitely. So if there's going to be a motion, you would need to do that. Any other discussion? Anyone want to make a motion? Don't everybody speak at once.
I'm just trying to look at this.
So you're positive the water now flows from left to right on that lot?
I know that it has to, just given the surrounding lots, the lots to the right of this are uphill or are higher, and the water is going to be graded away from the houses, or the ground's going to be graded away from the houses. So we know it's flowing from right to left, and at the same time flowing from the back porch of the house toward the back. What we don't want the water to do is to hit the edge of the pool deck and go straight back toward the house behind it.
But that's my concern about the house that may be behind it.
But there's no house there yet. So I'll make a motion to approve by recommendation, approve a 5-foot building line variance for the swimming pool contingent on the no raised beds, the decking, no decking, no other elements between the pool and the fence. The contractor needs to submit a approved drainage plan. That will not redirect onto the lot behind it.
Behind 128. Dr.
Yeah, behind the 128 Diamond Lane.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
Second is Ms. Pat. Motion's debatable, amendable, requires majority vote. All in favor of approving The recommendation is read for item 3, say yes.
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 Anyone opposed, say no.
No.
Now, tell me the requirement again. No, oh, I see
Yeah.
it. No raised deck,
No raised
beds,
beds, decking.
other elements between the pool and the fence.
And then they have to have the drainage plan.
Drainage plan.
Yeah, so that's the
Approved
problem.
drainage plan.
We have to have all four concur.
So based on the vote right now, the variance would not be granted. The Board
Right.
of Adjustment requires a 4/5 vote.
Okay.
And of the entire governing body, or the entire board, which is the council. And so with TJ Wilkerson not being here, that's the one vote. So the rest of you guys would have to be yes in order to grant the variance, and the vote was 3-1. So the variance is
Not approved. All right, so the variance is not approved. Consideration and possible action, item 4. Consideration and possible action on reassigning a special use permit for microblading granted to Megan Bird to new business owners Taylor Broussard and Kay Den.
Mayor and council, this item before you, if you've been down toward the east end of the city, there is a microblading, which is a permanent cosmetic tattooing. One of the partners was bought out by someone else. One of the partners is here in the audience with us, is the one that is the constant in the business ownership change. And so what this request is to put the SUP, or to transfer the SUP into the new owner's name.
And so that's all that would change, is just the name?
Yes, ma'am.
And so it expires in 5 years, which would be,
Would be from when it was approved initially, I believe.
Correct.
Because the 5-year clock started at the granting of the SUP. This is
okay,
just a mid-cycle name change, but the original 5 years is still there.
okay. So nothing else is going to extend out any,
Right.
okay.
Any other questions? Okay, entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve the reassigning the special use permit to Taylor, Broussard, and Kay Den.
A second.
I'll take Cheryl as a second. Motion is debatable, amendable, and requires majority vote. All in favor of approving item 4, say yes.
Yes.
Anyone opposed, say no. And the motion is approved. Item 5, discussion on a request from Living Savior Lutheran Church to rename Louisa Street north of Eva Street.
Mayor and council, without going into it, I see Mr. Haynes and Pastor Bales here in the audience, so I would like to introduce, if you guys would like to step up to the podium and just be counsel. Scott, you've have likely seen the information that we gave them, just a very basic overview, but if you would like to just explain the reason behind the request.
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor and City Council. This request is out of the development of the property there between Pond Street and Louisa Street. We, during the year 2018-19, made major improvements to the sanctuary building on that property, and have plans in the future to present more improvements to the property that will not only benefit our congregation, but also the city as well, in having a location right in the center of the city to host city events and other events, especially for nonprofits for that. What we have found is that our parking lot, which is on the east side, is very small. And we now have a large parking lot on the west side of our property. It's divided by a building. And so when people follow the address, let's say GPS, the first time they arrive there, either for a worship service or for an event of any kind, even city events, they go to that small parking lot and it's already full. And so our desire is to change our address to the west side to direct people to the west side parking lot, which is ample, of an ample size. In that process, we also, and that's where the request is coming in, is to make the change from Louisa Street to Church Street. Church Street used to run through our property, and we purchased that from the city a few years back. I don't recall the exact year of that, but probably around 2014, we made that purchase. And so Church Street is a very small street at this point. So our request is to take Church Street that you see on the map there and remove the name Church Street there, turn that into Cemetery, so extending Cemetery Street from just a north-south to a north-south and curving east-west. And then Louisa Street north of 105, starting there at 105 going up to Caroline Street would become Church Street. And then that would be our address, is there on Church Street to direct people there.
So my question is, why don't you just change your address to Louisa Street?
We could do that. It just seemed like if we were taking the opportunity to make that address change, Church Street is there, and being a church, that would be a very appropriate street name or address for our church. So
Will the address change affect anyone else's address, or is there any?
that is a question that I do not have the answer for. I know one address for sure it would. I'm not sure of another one.
There's currently one house on the street, so there's two properties that front, aside from the church's property that front, the northern part of Louisa. The Harmon family lives in the house that's there. The other is a vacant lot. It would change their street address. They don't get their mail in a mailbox at their street. I tried to call, or I did call a number of times and then wrote a letter last week to the homeowner. They're asking if they had any input. I've not heard any yet, but again, this is only a discussion item, so there's time still to hear feedback from her. But there is one resident that would have a different street address if we did change the name.
I was going to give you some history on the house that we live in. I used to live on Houston Street. House is still the same. Then it became Worsham Street, and now it's Stewart Street. House never moved. And we all lived through it.
Yeah, but I would certainly like to get some input from that person who would be affected, because an address change changes a lot of things, your mortgage and all kinds of things. So I would certainly like to get some input from that person, even if it's just one family.
If the city decides to change the name and we contact 911, how long does it take to get all of that in order for that homeowner to actually use a new address from 911? And then the church would have to get their address from 911.
Right. I don't know the timing on the 911 change and how fast they get that done, but it's certainly something we would find out if you guys decide to move forward with it.
And what all entails the city changing the name of that street? Other than just,
The two big mechanics would be to let 911 know that the street name changed and new street signs. And, aside from the mechanics of, I had spoken briefly with Caleb. Since I've been on staff, we've not gone through a renaming of a street. Back in 2018 or so, we changed Wade Street to Washington Street. I don't know the exact, process that whether it's an ordinance or what it is that the city approves. But the two big things for us is one, obviously, letting the county know so that 911 addressing is correct, and then the streets signs themselves.
So I can chime in here real quick. So typically you contact EMS, police, and then the post office prior to, and it is a adoption of an ordinance. So you do that before just to make sure there's no objections on their end. And then you'll place the item on the agenda to approve the ordinance and then notify residents on the street that they can attend the meeting and to speak on the issue and see what see if they have any objections. So that's the standard process, and then you'll notify MCAD, EMS, all the authorities around here of the address change.
So probably a month or two, at least.
It's fairly quickly once the
Yeah.
ordinance is approved. But you want to kind of check some boxes before you
Right.
take official action.
What kind of document filings do we have to do? Change plats, change stuff with the county and the state? What do we have to do there?
On this end, the ordinance, I believe all you would need to do here is just approve the ordinance and then update city maps accordingly. So I don't believe we would need to do a plat change in this instance or anything of that nature for street names.
Okay.
And actually, state law doesn't even have a formal process to change street names for general law cities. There's no formal statute.
So Dave, you didn't get a hold of Ms. Harmon?
No, I called 6 or 7 times, like I say, I mailed her a letter in the middle of last week to see if I could reach her by mail, get my email, phone number, cell phone number.
Do you remember
Knocked on her door.
when you put it on her door?
No, I said my next step was just to go knock on her door. I was given some advice to maybe try and reach out just in person if I wasn't getting a hold of them.
Do you remember when the letter was mailed?
Probably Wednesday or Thursday, sometime, like I say, around the middle of last week.
And it was mailed to a P.O. box?
Yes, ma'am.
She is ill, so I'm not sure that she gets out to the P.O. box very often.
So I let the dogs out about 6:15 one morning, and I figured that wasn't the time to ask.
Okay. Any other questions or input? Do you have what we need, we think?
So what is the resolution that we're going
So would this be a tabling?
There's
No, it
action.
was only
There's just no action,
discussion.
it's in
No
discussion.
action, no
only.
action.
If
Just
you guys are
discussion.
interested and you want us to proceed with it, then we can. That includes, firming up a contact with the owner that lives on the street, as well as finding out, what the exact steps are in terms of the time frame with 911, as well as any other approvals that we need.
Well, I'm in favor of having a church street. I think that would be very nice.
Certainly don't hear any objections, so.
I would like to just make sure
I
that
do
that
have a
Ms.
concern
Harmon,
about you talking to that neighbor.
yes,
And
yes.
so I don't want to do anything without making sure that that person is okay with that.
Because they've had that land there and lived there all of her life. So I would not want to,
So I want to give you the suggestion that, possibly instead of extending Cemetery Street, name that, Harmon Lane or something to that effect. And again, we're talking on the north side of the mom's property there. If you guys are generally agreeable to the idea of staff taking the next step to figure out, exactly what we need to do, then we sure will, and we will ensure that contact with that owner is part of that.
I talked to Barbara Bunch.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Item number 6, consideration possible action on an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Montgomery, Texas, amending its municipal budget for fiscal year 2021-2022, appropriating the various amounts herein as attached in Exhibit A, containing findings and a Texas Open Meetings Act clause, and providing an immediate effective date.
Thank you, Mayor. You should have a memo for me at your seats, which has an attached spreadsheet with some highlighting on it, which is up on the screen. A couple things. We have been working with the auditor since she started, and she started this project when I got here in January. So upon my arrival, we got with the auditor, started transferring information to her, and she started working on the audit. About that same time, I think it's no secret, we've been struggling to try to wrap up this fiscal year 2022 amendment. We brought it to you on December 13th and had to table it for some time for a couple subsequent meetings. It's on for tonight for consideration and a recommendation to approve at a certain amount, but I wanted to kind of hit a couple of issues first and explain it as best as I can, and then just open it up for whatever leading questions you have, and hopefully we can get those answered. So as we worked through this whole issue with the auditor, and it's still ongoing, the auditor's wrapping up the audit report. It's due by the 31st to the state, which is this Friday. She can't file it until we have this amendment done, but she is still finalizing some of the numbers, so I'll get into that in a second. But for tonight, these numbers that you see in front of you are from the audit, from the auditor herself. This is a draft audit report where she takes the trial balance and runs it based on what we approved in our budget and provides a variance. So if you look at that first column, it says budgeted fiscal year 2022 in my chicken scratch. And then in this next column, it says spent in fiscal year 2022. And then the last column is the difference. In this entire spreadsheet, which I'm going to scroll through in a second, everywhere that it's highlighted is an overrun from last year, which means we overspent that line item. So for me, there's a couple issues. One is that we have a budget that we approved last year and spent in excess of $57,000 in operational overruns. And we also spent in excess of $260,000 in capital outlays in our general fund. And I'll show you those in a second. A lot of small things that we overran on, some big things. And Dave, if you can scroll down to, so these are all the operational items. And again, it's just a listing of everywhere that we've overrun in fiscal year 2022. And that amount adds up to $57,612.04 in operational overruns. And if you go down to where the capital outlay is, right there. So under capital outlay, you can see on the lower right-hand corner where I have 266,432.86. That's how much we overran last year in our capital outlay. The top line item was an error that we had in reporting, so we were able to back that out, fortunately, decreasing that amount. So in all total, in fiscal year 2022, we overspent by $324,000. We still have to wrap up the audit. So the auditor is requesting that whatever we amend it to, we add a little bit more to cover. She feels that $345,000 would be enough to cover anything she finds from today until she files this conditional audit on Friday. So tonight, we are asking you to amend the fiscal year 2022 budget in that amount of $345,000. Anthony's got a couple other amendments that are attached to that. I'll let him speak to that. So again, the issues for me that we have found out of this whole process, we overspent. That's a problem. We shouldn't be overspending our budget. Related to that is issue number 2 is how did this happen? And again, for me, it's about sitting down with the staff, looking through all of these line items, pulling all the documents, all the files, looking at our practices, our policies, our internal controls on how we spend money, and making sure that we put things in place immediately that are going to keep us from doing this again next year. I do know we have some pretty good fiscal policies. There's some things that we're just not doing that we should be doing that would have caught this. So there's some easy mechanisms we can put in place in the short term that's going to help out a lot, but there's also some things that we need to do internally. Simple collaboration, meeting quarterly to go through the budget and reviewing our balances, making sure that we're doing budget amendments before we spend money, things like that. So again, Issue number one, overspent. Issue number two, we need to fix it. But I am confident in these numbers. I wasn't confident before. I had a meeting with the auditor today at 3 just to do a final review. And we're both feeling good about these numbers. We don't feel there was misappropriation going on. We need to do some more investigating to find out how this happened. And I will definitely come back and let you know, but this is where we're at right now. And I've just got to start pulling on these threads to see how we wound up in this position. So for tonight, what I'm asking for is for you to approve this budget amendment as it's proposed. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys have about this whole issue.
When did the audit actually get started? Do you know?
I got here the 6th, so it was that week. I think that following week that I talked to the auditor the first time and started doing the transfer of information.
And our year ended October? September.
September 30th. New fiscal year starts October 1.
Is that about right for them to not have started on the audit till January?
Probably not. I think they would have preferred to get it started earlier. We had some internal logistical issues, my onboarding. I know Anthony had his child was born during that time, so we had some issues going on there that delayed us in getting that information to them. But yes, it would have been nice to have it started earlier. And I think it took a lot of time for her to help us out with this budget amendment. So she spent quite a bit of time helping us back out some of the things that we could back out. We went from one software platform to another. We switched from QuickBooks to Encode in the middle of the year. She found some double billings in there, some coding issues that she was able to do some journal entries and back out to reduce this liability amount I've got before you tonight. So but there's other issues that we need to work on. And I just don't know what those are yet. I don't know whether it's a communication issue internally, if we don't have the right things set. I know we don't have internal controls in place that we should have in place. So it's getting those things together and implementing those. I'm confident we can do that. It's just, this, to me, it's embarrassing that we're coming to you asking you to amend the budget in this amount because we overspent. Clearly a management issue. Clearly we failed last year, and we're going to do better at fixing this.
Appreciate you saying that.
Will you keep us abreast of the internal controls that you implement, and just so that council's aware of going forward how this is going to be prevented?
Absolutely. I'll give you a full report on what I find and what we're doing to fix it.
But all these bills have actually, all these things have actually been paid, so it just came out of general funds to,
Right.
That's right.
Yes, and that's one thing, where on Friday, my thought was, okay, well, we obviously need to amend the budget and transfer money from our fund balance to cover this amount. I was wrong. This money's already been spent. The auditor, I talked to her about it today. It's already spent, so this is just a matter of going back and correcting the books. So when we file with the state, we're filing a balanced budget. So right now, we're not balanced.
Right.
This action tonight will bring us into balance and into compliance. So just to let you know, if we don't file this audit by the 31st, they'll do a finding where they do some sort of management letter either in, I guess, a state file or some file, which probably means we're going to have some oversight for a couple of years, and it may affect our bond rate.
Yeah.
So it's something, I hate putting you in this position, but I'm confident in these numbers, and I'm confident in the recommendation on approving it.
and even if we do amend the budget so that we can be in compliance and everything, some of these things that I'm sure can be explained how they were over, and work on possibly eliminating some of the other issues, correct?
Yes. Yeah, well, internally, I'll get our team together, and maybe we'll bring in an outside consultant, or maybe an expert from another city that can sit down with us, and we'll pull every one of these line item documents, and we'll go through, see what level it was approved at, see what documentation's attached to it, see what type of internal controls. Is there a PO attached? Is there a check request attached? What signatures are on there? Did it go to the city council for approval? Where are the minutes? Those are all things that should be a part of that file. And all things that we should be checking on to make sure we're doing things the right way. And when you have those things in place, it makes it real simple.
So we had two departments, to the positive note, that did an excellent job on their budgets. And Public Works and the court, thank you. Well done, right? Very good job. So it's not all about browbeating. It's when you do a good job, you did a good job. So thank you for that.
You know, at the end of the day, it's lack of leadership out of my office, so that's what we got to do to fix it. We got to make sure that we're putting things in place to make sure this doesn't happen again. And that's all leadership.
Well, I'm convinced that it'll be resolved in a way that we'll all understand it in the end, but so I would like to make the motion to make the amendment.
Well, hold on a second. I think there's some other items we have to add to that amendment just to kind of, for logistical purposes, so I want Anthony to go over those. That total may be more than 345. Is it? I don't know.
Yeah, all it is there's three other funds that we have to do an amendment for. One of them being the MEDC, and that's just the land purchase that they had back in August timeframe for the 600,000 debt service. We had an additional payment back when we purchased the 2022 tax notes, so that 27-ish thousand is for that. No, just to get to that amount, excuse me. And then the core technology is for maintenance for ticket readers that they had, and that's just upping that about a little over $2,000.
So all total budget amendment, we're recommending $345,000.
For the general fund, and then the other three funds that the auditor needs us to also amend to make whole.
So if you want to wrap it up nicely, to just be approve the budget amendment as proposed. If you have modifications, we can talk about that.
Can I ask a question about one line item?
Absolutely.
It's for Chief. Chief, and it's just something in my head about these police cars. Was there a grant?
No, sir. There's not a grant for those. These cars were approved by council in August 13th of 2021. They were approved by council.
21.
We didn't go out for a grant until December. Then we went out. These cars here were approved by council in August, and then it wasn't until we thought, okay, we'll buy some police cars for next year, but we'll get those through a grant.
Right.
We didn't do a grant until December.
Okay.
These cars, once they were approved, the bottom line is that money was never moved over.
Right.
It was not amended. It was never moved over. So we never actually overspent on cars. There were cars that were approved, that money was just not moved over.
So these were purchased in 21?
Yes.
Okay.
They were purchased in 21, and we didn't get them until 22.
Roger that. Okay.
But council approved it, and it was just,
Absolutely. I have the minutes here if you'd like to see.
So yeah, just kind of capitalize on what the chief was saying. So we do know that the capital outlay projects that you see up there, I know for a fact, because I watched the meeting, that the first one that the police cars were talking about, the expenditure was brought to you all as a city council. The budget was never amended. So what should have happened is the budget should have been amended first. And then the expense should have been brought to you all to authorize that expense. So that didn't occur. We know that. And I would suspect that's probably the same thing that happened with the other capital outlay projects. I just hadn't had time to watch those meetings.
Okay. So this has absolutely nothing to do with the revote on the grant later on in the...
No.
Not from the previous council?
Nothing at all.
Okay.
Nothing at all.
Okay. Good enough.
Good deal. All right, anything else? Do we need to specifically in the motion put the figure at 345 in there, or can we simply say as presented?
What I would request, just for me, so when I talk to the auditor, I can be very clear. Amend the general fund budget in the amount of $345,000 and the other funds as proposed. Would that work?
That works.
If that works for you, I think that grabs it.
Okay, that works for me. Council want to make a motion to that effect.
I move that we approve the budget amendment as proposed by the adoption of the attached ordinance with other, with provision for other, what is the word I'm looking for?
I think just as proposed is good.
As proposed.
I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Pat, second by Cheryl. Motion's debatable, amendable, and requires majority vote. And the motion is to approve the amount to balance the budget.
Fiscal year 2022
with,
year-end budget.
As presented, right? All right, all in favor, say yes.
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 Any opposed, say no. And the motion is approved as presented.
Thank you.
A little complex there.
May I ask real quick, is Exhibit A that's going to be attached to that ordinance, is it correct that I'm looking at right now?
Yes. You talking about the little spreadsheet with the shading on it?
Sir?
The little spreadsheet with the shading on it? Is that what you're looking at?
That's with our,
Yeah,
okay,
yes.
With your packet.
okay.
All right. Moving on to item 7, consideration possible action on an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Montgomery, Texas, amending its municipal budget for the fiscal year 2022-2023, appropriating the various amounts herein, as attached in Exhibit A, containing findings in the Texas Open Meetings Act clause, and providing an immediate effective date.
Thank you, Mayor. So this one is related to 213 Prairie Street. We have, city owns that property, and we found that we had a water leak, did some damage to the interior of the building that we needed to remediate pretty quickly to stop that damage. Had a company come in. I talked to our Public Works Director, and he contacted the company. They came in, did some work, gave us an estimate for some further work, but we wanted them to go in and yank all the carpet out that was wet, pull up all the drywall that had been infiltrated by mold, obviously fix the water leak, and just put us in a position where we can keep that building vacant, monitor it, and not have to worry about having any further problems with this damage. They came in, did the work in an amount of $24,000, maybe a little bit more. When we looked at the budget, we have a line item in the budget for 213 Prairie, but we don't have any money in it. And this is almost a great example of kind of what we just dealt with last year with the budget amendment, where we are asking for you to move this money from one fund into the building fund in our general fund so we can actually authorize this expense. So to do that, we would need to amend the budget to move that money over, and then the next item, item number 8, is the actual invoice to authorize that expense. So item 7 is just moving the money from one fund to the other. Item 8 is authorizing the expense to pay the contractors for that work.
Can you clarify the issue, the water issue, specifically what it was?
When I went over there, just to check out the building, walked in, it's obviously vacant, noticed that the carpets were saturated. I didn't know where the water was coming from. I looked and I couldn't find it, but there was, if you're familiar with that building, it's got 2 big bays in there, and there's so much water had gotten in that it was pooling. It had gone through all the carpet, gone out the door, and started pooling in the bays. So it was absolutely saturated in there. So I got a hold of Mike Montgomery, our DPS director. He contacted this company to get out there and pull all the carpet out. It turned out to be the toilet. Water was shut off. There was just enough coming through that meter to have a drip that resulted in the damage we had, just
So
over
there's nobody
time.
in the building actually that,
Nobody was in there.
just want to be clear.
Over 2 months, that had been leaking, and you got a closed-up building, no ventilation, mold.
Understand.
You have some serious issues. So we wanted to get that fixed right away.
And based on the description here for the transfers, we're transferring it from our current budget just to different accounts, or is it coming from general fund?
It's going from an outside fund to our general fund. What's the
Capital projects to general fund.
so capital projects, we have a fund in there that's got money in it. We need to transfer that over into our building fund and the general fund. Our building line item in the general fund.
So it ultimately, it doesn't raise our overall budget, it's just moving it.
No, just moving the money.
Very good.
All right, any other questions? I'll entertain a motion.
It did raise
No.
the totals changed. It didn't raise it, but the totals will be changed because you're adding it into a different line item. So the totals will change on the budget.
So that's what I was trying to understand, is that on that sheet, it looks like it changes, but on this sheet, it looks like they're just moving it from one account to another
And that's true.
within the line items.
Yeah, right.
So it shouldn't change the total.
Well, it does.
Total expenditure. It'll
Right.
change our expenditures.
Right.
Yeah. 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 Because you take it out,
Reducing from one,
add it in.
adding to another.
So it does change the totals, but not overall
Right.
budget because the money is there. You're
Right.
just switching it.
Yeah, that's what I meant. The overall budget will remain the same.
It will
Yes.
remain the same. Yes, sir.
All right. We want to have a motion.
I make a motion to approve the budget amendment as proposed by adoption of the attached ordinance.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Second is by Cheryl. The motion is debatable, amendable, requires majority vote. All in favor of approving the ordinance as stated, say yes.
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 Anyone opposed, say no. And the motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 8, consideration possible action on authorizing the city administrator to execute payment for invoice number I-1073 from Drytex Restoration in the amount of $24,134.52.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 7, that you just approved the budget amendment. This is authorizing the expenditure to pay Drytex Restoration for the work that they've done at that building. Mike, I don't know if you wanted to add anything else?
You already explained to us what they did.
All right. No questions? Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to authorize the city administrator to execute the payment as presented.
A second.
Motion is by Casey, second is by Cheryl. Motion is debatable, amendable, requires majority vote. In favor of approving item 8 as stated, say yes.
Yes.
Anyone opposed, say no. Motion carries 4-0 for item 8.
Thank you.
On to departmental reports. Item 9, Public Works Report. Mike?
Sir, good evening, Mayor and Council. You have the February report in front of you. We're happy to answer any questions you have on it. Anything at all?
Just one with the water work orders. Those are work orders that you and your crew completed, or are those work orders that you called out to get completed?
No, these are work orders that we complete. So this is off our e-work order system that we
Okay.
use to track all of our daily activity.
Cool.
I guess the only thing I would like to point, I'm going to point out anything on here on a positive note, y'all might have seen a Facebook post on the water line casing job that we did internally. That was on 1097. It was a exposed 12-inch water main that was found in the ditch. So we bought the casing and pipe and did it ourselves. We spent in the neighborhood of all in with labor and everything about 14 grand to do it. I did not go out for quote on what it would have cost us, but it was probably 60 grand that it would have cost us to go out and do it. So saved a ton of money doing it ourselves. It helps having good guys that have that knowledge base that can get in there and knock that out. Actually did it all in one job. They worked through the whole day with no lunch. I went and grabbed a couple of pizzas and fed them out their own site so they could keep going, but it was got it all done in about 10 hours. Didn't put anybody out of water, so just want to
deal.
brag on them a little bit.
Very good.
Thank you for that.
Bet.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Mark.
Before I turn it over to the utility report, I just want to just let y'all know what is going on with the utility report this month. So we decided this last month to change it up in the reporting period. So they used to report the 17th of the month through the 17th of the month, which is our billing cycle, because they would get their billing numbers on water sold from the utility billing department. What we've decided to do starting this month is to report on a calendar month, and the billing numbers that you see are no longer going to be from the utility billing numbers. They're actually going to be straight from the Badger Beacon meter software. So we're going to take the numbers that from the meters themselves and use that as the sold number on a calendar month. Makes the reporting a whole lot cleaner, makes the math a whole lot easier for the flushing and everything. So, but with that said, we did it this month, but we're gonna let it run another month to make sure accountability is correct and all that. But I just wanted to brief y'all on what he's fixing to present.
Okay, utility operations, H2O report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Howard Wilhite with A-Show Innovation. On our report, we had one district alert. It was a sewer backup on Rankin Street. We checked that their city lines were clear, so it ended up being a homeowner's issue, so we notified that homeowner. On the wastewater report, you'll see that the flow for the month of February was 6,276,000 gallons, with a peak flow on February 2nd of 568,000 gallons. Your average flow is at 224,000 gallons, which makes you about 56% of capacity at your wastewater facility.
I have a question about that.
Yes, sir.
So 20% of the whole month was done in one day.
Yeah, apparently there was a double hit because of some rain.
Okay.
The next page is your discharge limitations, and everything was compliant with the wastewater permit, so no issues there. The next page is your water report, and at the top of the page, you'll see the production from each well for a total of 8,041,000 gallons, flushing of 328,000 gallons, and you sold 7,419,000 gallons, so you were at 96% accountability. And the following two pages are just historical information. And that's all I have, unless you have any questions.
Okay, no questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 11, finance and quarterly investment report.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. I've gone ahead and done a different kind of report going forward, just to try to make things a little bit simpler. So the detailed report's going to give a little bit more information in terms of the accounts and kind of where we're at. But I'm going to go ahead and summarize everything as far as this report is concerned. So on the screen, as you can see, we have our bank balances as of February 28th. And then, as you can see, where all of our money is currently at, the bulk of it being 80% of it being in your tax pool, as that's making the highest interest as of right now. The next page is just a summary of all your revenues for each of your funds, just showing where you are in your budget-wise, fiscal year activity, how much you have remaining to collect, as well as the percent remaining to collect for the current fiscal year. Of course, the breakdown of each account will be in your detailed report. And then the next is just a graph of kind of where you're at for each fund in terms of how much you've collected, the bulk being your general fund. Next, I did a 3-year comparison of your of your sales tax collections. So as you can see, fiscal year 2020, 21, 2021, 2022 has all the historical data there. And I'm also keeping up with the 2022, 2023 data. As you can see, we did collect less than we did last, around this time this year, but we are on track to still collect, or to finish collecting more than what we did at last fiscal year, roughly about 3% or so, but of course we'll be keeping up with those collections as we go. And then you can see that on the graph how everything has been, your collections and all for each month for the last, so far, 2.5 years almost. And then also did the same thing for your property taxes as well. So you can see the bulk of your property taxes come in between the months of December and February. A big chunk of it came in in January of almost $900,000. Of course, that being because of the property values being increased. As you can see, we're already over from what we collected last fiscal year in our property taxes, and we still have a little bit more left to collect for this fiscal year. And then as you can see, everything is all graphed, showing the bulk and the majority being in those 3 particular months. Just a summary of your general fund revenues: collected almost 56% of your taxes and franchise fees, 56% of your permits licenses, a little over 60% of your fees and services, 35% of your court fines and forfeitures, 119% of other revenues. The bulk of that is from your interest earned on investments. That was fairly under budgeted for the fiscal year. We've collected a lot more than anticipated, being with the rates the way that they are and continuing to increase as well. And then 40% of your transfers. So far we've collected almost 55%, and just showing that your taxes and franchise consist of roughly 90% of your total revenues. And then the next graph, of course, will show you where the bulk is being collected at, roughly 58% of taxes being sales tax, and 41% being in ad valorem taxes, property taxes. The next slide is just your summary of all your expenses for each fund. Same thing, current budget, fiscal year activity, budget remaining, and how much you still have left to expend for each fund. And then the next slide being just a graph of where the bulk of where all your expenditures are coming from. The bulk, of course, being general fund. And then just a summary of your expenditures. We have a little over 63% left in your administrative to expend. Police has just a shade under 65%. Public Works just a little over 75%. And court just a little over 71%. And then the only other 2 things I have is on that last page of your detailed report shows the payment, highlighted is the last payment that we made for the debt service. That line will go away as that has been taken care of. And then the only other item is just your quarterly investment report. That is a requirement that I have to present each quarter for y'all review. And that's all I have, unless you have any questions. And hopefully that was a little bit better in terms of kind of what y'all are looking for.
Yeah, I had asked to kind of clean it up and make, like normal people look at months. This is in, this is out. I think that's huge. Light years. I'll give you a little more input though. That the charts is all I need. The pie graph in addition to, if you want to take that out, I read like up and down and here, and I know it's pretty. But I'm just saying, if you want to take some of that out, simplify some more. And we're on the screen as well for those of you that don't know, and we don't want to give lip service to transparency. We want to actually do it. And so we're headed that direction. So thank you for that.
Okay, sure. We'll tweak it up.
Now, we're in 6 months, or we're
5.
ending 6 months?
We ended, this is a February 20th, so it's been 5 months so far.
Because everything's always a month.
Yes.
Everything's a month.
Everything's per month, yes.
So is the budget looking okay so far?
So far, so good.
And we've only done this, is this amendment number 1?
This is amendment number 1. Now, there is going to be other ones that I feel will still come as time goes on, just because there will be some cleanup on certain items that have gone over. But the plan is to get with staff and Gary to try to get those to where they are, to where we get those fixed for the ones that are slightly over as well too. So we'll be working together to make sure that everything is in order.
Just point out that the February of last year was the record. So don't think this February is, it is definitely lower, but you also notice that ad valorem is significantly higher. That trend is good, so we'll be fine. All right.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. Item 12, sales tax report.
Thank you, Mayor. We were supposed to have somebody from Sales Revenue Inc. tonight to give you guys a presentation, but they didn't show up.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'd have this on consent. I don't have anything else to give you other than the data that you see in front of you.
We pay them, right?
Okay. Item 13, police and code enforcement report.
Mayor, Council, you have your reports in front of you, both code enforcement, police. Do you have any questions?
How many officers do we have at this moment?
We have got approximately 6. We've got 2 in training. We're about to hire another, and we still have 3 more to hire.
So that's a total of what, Chief?
Beg your pardon, ma'am?
Would you say that's a total of how many?
We have a total of 14 when it's all said and done.
Gentleman asked me today, and I told him 10.
A little bit more than that. It's just we've got the 3 more to hire, and we have 2 in training. We've got 2 in training, 1 that's going to start next week, and then the 3 more after that.
The one that you found from your VIP or that lady that was part of that, man, I can't even call the name, but the program that you have, the citizens
Yes,
thing,
sir.
is she getting close? Is she one of those?
She didn't make the cut.
Okay. Don't know who she is, I'm just wondering. All right. Anything else? Thank you. Item 14, municipal court report.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. The collections for citations for February 2023 was 38, and the revenue was $19,817.26 for February 2023. Are there any questions for the municipal court? Thank you all.
Thank you for what you do. Item 15, engineers report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Y'all have a copy of our report. I'll hit the highlights for you, kind of the more hot button topics that have changed this month. The water plant number 3 improvements, the contractor has addressed all punch list items, and we are expecting to receive the final pay estimate and certificate of acceptance from the project engineer, which is Quiddity, this month, and hope to bring that to you at your April 11th meeting to get this project closed out. On the GLO projects, the water plant 3 generator, the contractor is expecting to have the new auto dialer installed by April 7th. As a reminder, the MLK project was accepted, and we are working through the closeout process with the GLO and Grant Works. The Old Plantersville water line extension, we did receive text-out approval on March 17th, so now we are in the stages of coordinating with MISD regarding easements and continuing with design on both that project and the force main extension. These are both being funded by the Redbird Meadows developer. On the McCowan and Caroline waterline replacement, we had the surveyor go out and complete some additional field work for both our project and the project that Ardura is working on above ground. They did complete the additional field work, and we're expecting to receive the revised survey any day now. Downtown sanitary rehab, the contractor has substantially completed the project. At this point, we are reviewing the post-repair videos to confirm that the work was done appropriately and go from there. We'll also be checking on site restoration. I know that there have been a couple of things that have come up that need to be readdressed by the contractor, so we're making note of all of those things, and we'll be working with them to get it cleaned up and taken care of appropriately. Flagship, in our report, it says April 6th we plan to receive bids. We will actually be receiving bids on Thursday, and we will be presenting a recommendation of award to you at your next council meeting. The plan for that one is to begin construction in late May, right after school is out. That way they are complete with construction before school begins again and traffic picks back up.
Good deal.
Next section of my report is our plan reviews. Just kind of the highlights of this one are we issued a plan approval of Dutch Bros after the plat was recorded. Again, a reminder, it was conditional approval beforehand. This is full approval. Going down to Montgomery, Bend, mass grading and detention, we did approve those plans on March 17th. Not long after we received the plans for their water, sanitary, and drainage, and so we are working through our review for that portion of it. Kind of going further on, but tying into the mass grading and detention, they're expecting to begin construction of that portion of the development this week. We've got our plat reviews listed, no major changes since the last time we spoke. It's been pretty quiet on the plat side of life. In our one-year warranty inspections, I apologize, I've been jumping around a little bit. This is on page 4 of our report. We held a warranty inspection for Town Creek Crossing Section 1 on March 23rd, and we're preparing the punch list for the contractor to address. Going to the TxDOT section, the right-hand turn lane at 149 and 105 is substantially complete, minus any remaining cleanup work that needs to be done, but complete as it can be.
And what's going on at that corner to the side, just cleaning it up or whatever, it's all?
Not entirely sure. It looks like maybe some cleanup and moving equipment off-site, but the remainder of that property
It's
is
just gonna
private
remain
property.
just kind of like it is? It definitely looks better and functions better.
Right. And then the last item I wanted to touch on is on page 5 is the Lone Star Parkway Bridge repair. It's our understanding they are bidding this month. The last page of my report is the active developments map as per usual. If y'all have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
We anticipate tying up GLO, got a letter recently about some questions that are coming. Are those questions entirely item B under 2, MLK, or does it have anything to do with something else? Just, not that I can answer any of them.
It is a monitoring review for the whole project, which is a standard part of what they do. There'll be spot checking. It's very similar to a city's financial audit, where they look at the receipts, they look at the wage statements from the contractor, ensure that they're paying the federal wage. But it's for both the sanitary sewer and ditch work on MLK, as well as the generator for water.
But those questions will go to administration and, right?
Correct.
Okay, so I don't have to study something. Okay, cool. All right. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 16, City Administrator Report.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a couple things to report for March. I attended the Montgomery Area Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors meeting a couple weeks ago. I plan on attending those regularly if my schedule allows. Attended the Texas Municipal League Mid-Year Conference in San Antonio. It was a 2-day conference I went to a few weeks ago. Wasn't bad. I found a lot of value in the legislative review, and obviously the networking opportunities, just meeting new people, my counterparts from other cities, so I think that was fruitful. The mayor and I met with energy representatives a couple weeks ago, had a good meeting with them, just general customer service, getting to know you, exchange business cards type of thing. And last thing is I hold 2 credentials. One is a city manager credential, and one is a planning credential. Requires 40 hours each, so 80 hours a year I have to do in continuing education. I wrapped all of that up. I'm wrapping it up this week, so I'll get all that done. I'll have my credentialing done by the end of this week, so I'll be current. Other than that, that's really about it. Unless y'all have any questions for me.
No, I just appreciate your work that you've done to get our budget lined out for the amendment for 21-22 budget.
Yes.
We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Been communicating closely with Mr. Palmer, and it's just been wonderful. Particularly in the idea that you're communicating with everybody in terms of staying on top of any kind of financial relief that we can get, any type of connections we can make, and that sort of thing. As I've said, there is a pool of money, and we need some help. And so just know, citizens, that we're doing everything we can to make sure we're on top of that. And pray without ceasing. We sure could use that help. Anything else? All right. Entertain a motion to approve the departmental reports, items 9 through 16.
I make a motion to approve the departmental reports, items 9 through 16.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Second is by Pat. Motion's debatable, amendable, requires majority vote. All in favor of approving departmental reports, items 9 through 16, say yes.
Yes.
Anyone opposed, say no, and we will approve departmental reports, items 9 through 16. Executive session, Mr. Palmer?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Discuss property.
Adjourn into closed session in compliance with section 551.001 ETSEQ. Texas Government Code, to wit, section 551.072, deliberation regarding real property. It is 7:13. We are adjourned into executive session.
Thank you.
Dave, you ready? Yes, sir. It is 8:20 and we are back in from executive session. Are there any motions? There are no motions, then council inquiry.
I don't know if it's, if I should ask, but
Go ahead.
I would like to know what how the Charlie Diggs thing came out in regards to the city. I know that there was a grant from EDC. Is that correct? Byron?
We probably don't know all the details of this
I'm
early.
talking about last year, I'm sorry.
Oh. I don't know.
Did we get a check? He was supposed to bring a check by. Did he ever do that?
Yes, ma'am, I know it did. I'm not recall the amount that it was for, but I know it again, the agreement from the EDC is based on the
Right.
number of ticket sales.
So there was no money from last year either?
No, he did.
Oh, he did?
Specify the check. I just don't know the amount off the top of my head.
It's 3,000, it was somewhere in that, I don't remember.
That was last
That was all?
Last year, that was last year.
You sure that's all it was?
It was 3 to 6, like I say, I hate to quote it, but yeah.
But I would like to
people
know,
there
what the-
this year than
I
there
would
was
like to
last
know
year.
what the cost was.
Well, but we only agreed to do it for 3 years,
Yeah,
right, Dave?
we had a 3-year.
We only agreed to do it for 3 years, and this was his 3rd year, right?
Right, the bylaws of the EDC
So,
or the grant policy.
We don't give him any more money.
Right, you would either, the EDC would either need to amend its grant policies, or this year was the last one.
Okay.
Dave, what is the status for the Renegade RV park that was going in off of MLK?
I spoke with him this morning, actually. It was either late yesterday or this morning, and explained to him that, so what he has stated that he's doing is using the property for his own personal storage.
But that's not what he told the neighbors.
Right.
He told the neighbors that he was installing an RV park, and he had commenced to put in installs.
Right.
I'm very concerned about the status of that, the fact that it did not go through proper permitting. Neighbors weren't legally notified. And the fact that he seems to be wanting to move forward because now both RVs are back in place over there.
So what he is, so what he indicated to me was by the end of the week that they're going to be gone. So I explained to him that in using the property for storage is an accessory use to a single-family residence, because that's the primary use of R1 single-family zoning. So under our table of uses, an accessory use would require city council approval. So I would expect that to see, or for council to see I guess a request from him to be able to use his property as, again, as what he has described to the city, to us, is that it's used for his personal storage. Like an SUP or like a special use permit, you can put conditions on that, approval. But it's going to be up to the council whether or not to let him use the property for storage. If it were me and somebody said they were going to store something, I would, and what my suggestion is that there's no staying in the RVs, there's no overnight use of the RVs, if that's.
But how do we, I mean,
You can't enforce it.
You can't enforce that.
Where is this at?
you know where,
MLK and McGinnis.
yeah, MLK and McGinnis, almost on the corner, right next to the hatches.
Next to that, across from Hatches.
But I'll be glad to send you the letter that I sent him.
I would love to have that, because they're still very concerned about it. They're also concerned about that culvert, as to how that culvert might impact their property in a large rain.
Yeah.
He put in a big commercial culvert to get
Big
RVs
culvert.
in and out of there.
Yep.
in the
Is there
city
a current
limits
city
then.
code violation?
Yes.
There is.
Yeah.
And he's been notified in writing?
I haven't talked to Elle about it, let's talk to the elderly couple that's right next door to it. That's whose property it would mostly affect.
Okay.
Pat, we can talk about it tomorrow.
Okay.
We'll follow up.
All right.
There is a big, oh, I guess this would be TxDOT though, wouldn't it? 149 over there. Here we go.
Yeah.
Flagship Boulevard and 149 as you come off of Flagship onto 149. Two big holes there.
Big old hole.
Have you seen them, Mike?
You might right at the edge of the road?
Yeah, real bad.
Bad.
Yes.
Is it because we turned the corner too sharp?
Yeah. I can call them in the morning and report it.
Would you? Thank you. Because they're bad. That one is real bad. But I turned the corner too short. But I haven't hit the sign yet, so I think I'm okay.
And then we talked about a bunch in there, but don't forget about Klepper and the way the road is falling.
I'm gonna run by there tonight.
Yeah. That could be.
Don't go in the dark now.
Yeah, don't.
Don't go in the dark.
No,
Oh,
you know,
Lord.
so I can give you an update on that now. We've actually got our, the paving contractor that we used last year is coming in town Thursday to meet with us, and that is one of the spots that we're looking at to get a quote on.
Okay.
Good deal.
Repair.
On Clipper, the two spots.
Yeah.
Good.
That's from the drought this summer.
Well, if you find my tire,
Goes to shit.
give it back to me.
What's that?
If you find my tire, give it back to me.
Oh, you're right, yeah. It's pretty what my GoPro does when it's dry.
Yeah.
Shifts and cracks. But yeah, we do have, Ken Beck is his name, and he's coming with us with paving that Thursday to look at a couple of areas to get started on.
All right, any others?
They do have a nice sidewalk.
Council have any others? Entertain a motion to dismiss.
I make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it is 8:27 and we are adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you.